Today, I have invited Dr. Chris Longhurst to a Zoom recording for a broadcast. Chris, a warm welcome and haere mai to our radio program.
Haere mai. Thank you, Beate. It's lovely to be here with you.
Dr. Christopher Longhurst is a New Zealander who spent many years abroad. He returned to Aotearoa, New Zealand after his academic studies in theology and gaining work experience in Europe and Northern Africa. In Rome, Italy, he was an operatore didattico, an educational instructor for the scientific and administrative management of the Vatican museums. And in Ifrane, in Morocco, he served as assistant professor of philosophy and religious studies at Al-Akawan University. Back in New Zealand, he's a lecturer at Te Kupinga Theological College of Aotearoa, New Zealand, and actively involved in interreligious dialogue and interfaith work. Chris, this is an impressive biography. However, there's another achievement that I haven't mentioned so far in this introduction. You have recently returned from graduation of the King Abdullah bin Abdulaziz International Center for Interreligious and Intercultural Dialogue, the KAICIID Fellowship Programme in Lisbon, Portugal. Can you tell us more about KAICIID so that we can better understand the significance and the honor for you to be part of this program?
Thank you, Beate. Certainly, it was an honor to graduate from the 2020 International Fellows Program. And the Fellows Program for KAICIID basically sums up what KAICIID is primarily about, at least as a training hub for people involved in interreligious dialogue and intercultural dialogue. So the KAICIID Fellows Program brings together already people who are leaders or educators in academic institutions that teach religion, or faith-based institutions, or places that involve religion. So the Fellows Program brings those people together for training and dialogue facilitation, intercultural communication, and to promote social cohesion, to go back to their local communities and to carry on the work that they were prior doing, to impart the new knowledge that they learn in the Fellows Program around interreligious dialogue and intercultural dialogue as well. So basically the program equips fellows with the skills to educate their own students and their own communities about interreligious dialogue and interfaith relations, so that they too can become facilitators and leaders in dialogue and active peace advocacy in their local communities. So it's an extraordinary program insofar as that it passes on and continues to pass on through teaching teachers to teach them their students as well. So that's what the Fellows Program is all about. But again, the Fellows Program is just a part of the of KAICIID, the International Dialogue Center, which is a unique organization because it has a dual governance structure. It's comprised of both a council of parties made up of representatives of the founding states for KAICIID, as well as it's made up of representatives of leaders of the world's major religions. So again, it has this both state and religious leadership dual governance role. The founding members, the founding states were the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, the Kingdom of Spain, the Republic of Austria, and the Holy See. So the leaders of those countries make up the leadership of KAICIID, together with leaders of Buddhist, Christian, Hindu, Islamic, and Jewish religions as well. So not only does it have this dual governance role, it also, the way it operates is quite unique because it follows both the top-down model and the bottom-up model, meaning that top-down, the people at those leadership roles in the religions and the states interact with people on the ground who are involved at the grassroots level in their countries, in their regions, doing interfaith dialogue and interreligious relations work. So again, it creates this extraordinary nexus of relationships between powerful people at the top and important people at the bottom as well.
Chris, you mentioned powerful people, and you mentioned that state and religion. Is there a balance of state and religion, or are some of them maybe both in one? They are powerful state persons and religious leaders. Can you tell us a little bit about the balance?
Sure. I think that in society in general today, that balance is important because we have state leaders governing countries, and we have leaders of religions governing also the outworking of the religious practice. So therefore, you have policymakers, for example, ministers who are in charge of religious affairs or ethnic affairs, interacting with heads of religious communities on the ground, or in their local churches or religious communities, or in the Ummah in the case of Islam. Perhaps in the state as well, insofar as some countries today are still governed by a religious polity, interacting together. So power in the sense of authority and capacity to make change. And that's what I think is important and unique about KAICIID, that it interacts at that top level, so that those persons who can make those changes are involved in being informed by the people on the ground. So I think the balance is simply in the collaboration between the leaders of both roles. So it's not a either or; it's a both and kind of organization, wherever and from my experience with KAICIID, it's not it's where it works. It's not theoretically based, and we learned this in the KAICIID Fellows Programme, to move away from overemphasizing the importance of theory at the expense of practice. So KAICIID operates on the level of practice, where hopefully it's informed by good theory. But the important thing about KAICIID is that where it works, where the people are in their local communities and the regions, is where the work is done, being in collaboration with authoritative ministers of the state.
Chris, can you tell us a little bit about the history? How old is KAICIID? Who initiated it? So you mentioned the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, the Republic of Austria, and the Vatican. But how did that come about to create KAICIID? And it has quite an Arabic name.
Indeed, if I'm not mistaken, although I'm not the best person to consult regarding the history of KAICIID, but what I have been informed is that the name, the dedication to King Abdulaziz was given by the head of the Holy See at the time, who was Pope Benedict the 16th. That's what I've heard. In 2012, so only 10 years ago, was when the Dialogue Centre was founded. And when you look at its history, information about the history and the development of KAICIID, it's made extraordinary progress and outreach throughout the world, through being both providing both an international focus and a regional-based focus too. For example, in the Fellows Program, there's an international cohort, which is what I was part of, because there's no Oceania cohort. Yet there were European cohorts, an African, South and Southeast Asia cohort, Latin America.
Sorry, can I just ask you to clarify cohort? What do you mean exactly with cohort? Is that something structured and set, or?
It's a focus region where people come together. Fellows are pulled from that particular area. So there are fellows who are pulled from the Latin American area, and they form the Latin American Fellows Program. The European Fellows Program would pull candidates to participate from Europe, for example. So there are simultaneously an international cohort where people from all around the world come together. which is absolutely extraordinary to remember. What I experienced at KAICIID in the Fellows Program was not the learning of interreligious dialogue, but the doing of interreligious dialogue. And that became an important focus of the training as well. So a lot of these binaries that we create are actually not only broken down, KAICIID shows in its training how they're not real. They're sometimes not applicable when things like dialogue needs to have an effect. In other words, what I'm trying to say is that all the theory behind the dialogue is useless if it's not put into practice, and it's where it's practiced well and effectively is where the change takes place. Therefore, there's a lot of overlap between these binaries like theory and practice, learning and doing. It's all mixed up in a very exciting way, and a way that makes interreligious dialogue effective when it's done.
Chris, can you tell us how you got involved and how did you become a member of this program?
Sure, and I invite anyone who's interested to go online and look at the International Fellows Program, because they've made a call for the 2023 cohort just recently. Anyone who's interested, as I was, in upskilling, in facilitating dialogue, would be wise to apply. As I did. I actually applied in 2017, and it's quite competitive, and I never made it. So I reapplied in 2019 it is a highly competitive and selective process, and there are certain criteria that are required for you to be selected as a fellow. For example, you would already be involved in teaching, at least, if it weren't in religious studies or theology, you would be teaching in those fields, and KAICIID would train you in, for example, into religious dialogue, to go back to your students and to incorporate that into the programs that you're already teaching. So it does target people who are already educators in the fields of religion or involved in religious practice on a educational level, which of course that's a very, very broad and important field there too, because the premise is that we are transformed through our educational process. So as a theologian, it was important for me to be able to speak to different people of diverse religions regarding the theological ideas that subsist in diverse religions in a comparative way too. So that's why I was interested in upskilling in this field and applied, and finally did get accepted. New Zealand's in a unique part of the world, both geopolitically and, of course, physically. And Oceania, too, is an important part of the world where there are a lot of indigenous cultures with their own nature-based religions that come together with people of those same ethnicities that practice major world religions. So the problem with New Zealand, which I wanted to address and look forward to still addressing today, with the help of KAICIID, was managing New Zealand's very high religious diversity and very high cultural diversity. I think it's quite, New Zealand is a place of risk, in my opinion, to have such high diversity without structures to manage it. And KAICIID provides people like their fellows with the tools to offer educational expertise in how to manage religious diversity, how to manage cultural diversity too. Again, I don't think New Zealand can pride itself on being a wonderful, tolerant country simply because we have these high degrees of religious diversity and cultural diversity if we don't have structure in both our government and in our educational system to manage it.
And that there are these focus groups, and you say that New Zealand belongs to Oceania. Is that correct? Is there a focus group, Oceania?
No, not yet, because I'm the only fellow, actually, not only from New Zealand, but from Oceania at this time. But of course, growing, hopefully, when a number of fellows from the same region come together, that's when a KAICIID would form a regional cohort.
So in order to form this cohort, we have to make sure that you have support and get other people from Oceania to become members, and then together you would form a cohort. Is that correct?
Indeed. The beautiful thing about KAICIID too is that it is where it operates. So where its fellows are, where its staff are, where its advisors are working, is where KAICIID is. And that's also in the online, in the virtual reality space, through fantastic first-class, world-class programs in interfaith dialogue, just dialogue as well. KAICIID provides that easy access through online training as well.
How many members are there, more or less, of this fellows program? Because you said it was very difficult to get accepted. So how do they have a limit, or how do they work?
I'm not sure. The graduation that I just attended in Portugal had 3 cohorts graduating from 2020, the international, the African, and the South and Southeast Asia. And together we comprise 61 fellows. And of that, I believe around 22 were of the international cohort from 2020. So probably around 20, 25 persons qualified, at least on the international level, for each annual cohort. Though I'm not sure exactly how that's worked out.
You also mentioned the abundance of information, and it's an information hub. Can you tell us more for somebody who might not be interested in becoming a member or a fellow, but because, as you said, it's not so easy. But if somebody just wants to get some information and for his or her personal life together in a society that is very diverse, can you recommend anything, or can you give us an example of a program?
Absolutely. And there are the introductory level programs to peace building, interreligious dialogue, interfaith relations at the Knowledge Hub, it's called. If you simply Google KAICIID and on its main webpage, you'll find information along the top about who KAICIID is, what they do, news and events. Also, if you click on what's called the Knowledge Hub, there are e-learning courses and webinars on that site there too. For example, if you click on e-learning courses, there will be I
can put the website link on the website and also in this interview. So that will be helpful. But can you give us an example of something very practical? Just pick out one that you think is very useful.
Sure. I think given that KAICIID's overall mission is simply to foster peace in the world today, then using interreligious dialogue to strengthen peace, reconciliation, and social cohesion is one of the moderated online courses.
So how long are these courses? Can you tell us a bit about them? Is it like an hour, or is it a course where you have to watch a series of programs? Just an idea.
Yes, like most online courses, they can be signed. You can register when you want and undertake the learning at your own pace. The Moodle teaching and learning module platform that KAICIID uses is highly interactive, where there are inbuilt webinars where the instructors will talk to you and invite you to engage in workshops as well. So they're carried out by the participant at the participant's own pace online. So I would encourage anyone who's interested in in interreligious dialogue and interfaith relations to look at them. They're easily accessible. Many of them are free as well, and some will offer certificates, will award certificates, and actually many will award certificates, which would of course be part of your professional development of people already involved in education in this area.
That's very helpful. And Chris, can you tell us now? You have had your graduation. What happens now? Are you in constant contact with them, with the other fellows, or how does it work? How much time do you spend with the program?
Graduation took place right at the end of the last training, and at the last training, which was, from my point of view, one of the most important, actually, because it showed how this is the start of a new beginning in interreligious dialogue, where KAICIID has not just trained its fellows, but now the fellows are taken to another level of furthering their own initiatives that they were required to complete as part of the graduation. So all the fellows to be accepted into the program had to provide a proposal for an initiative that they would work on during the fellowship back in their home countries and implement. And that's all been successfully done now. But now what KAICIID does is bring fellows together where their programs, where their initiatives were similar, to come together and work on bigger initiatives. And KAICIID offers support in those programs, financial support, of course, structural support. So now it's up to us to take the learning that we've gained over the past. It should have been 1 year for the 2020 cohort. It was 2020 Fellows Program was 2 years because of the complications, worldwide around COVID. But what I'm trying to say is that we've learned over these past 2 years is now expected to be applied in our local organizations and in the groups that we belong to. For example, the councils that I'm on and the committees that I'm on, there's an opportunity now to put some of that work in. It doesn't just end there. We learned interreligious dialogue is not an event. It's not even an occasion. It's a process that takes place over, either throughout the maturation of life or in certain points along life's journey.
Yeah, that's really interesting. It's really important. And as you say, that it should be part of your life. And you are doing your best also to promote the idea and to promote the resources, because these resources are available and they are free of charge, I understand. You can just participate. Yes. Is that correct?
Yes, indeed. And like all education, but especially in this important field of interreligious dialogue, of being educated or becoming literate in doing this kind of work, it transforms people's lives. And that's, I think, where the both the success of the program is and the personal success of the people who are involved in it, because once that transformation begins, you can see how your entire your own lives are enriched by that knowledge of other people's faiths. And again, it's not just the learning of it, it's the doing of it that I found throughout the program was life-giving and also challenging. KAICIID doesn't just create safe spaces for dialogue, it creates brave opportunities to challenge in safe ways. And we learned that too. Another, if I may just briefly touch on the importance of the of moving away also from the reason is important and the rational side of doing dialogue is very important. But what we learned throughout the program was how important it is to empathize, to have empathy with the other, and to listen, not just in word, but actually in practice, what listening means and how to listen well, to enter that space of the other in order for that dialogue to be effective, both as a patient listener and as a active participant in the speaking process too. The way that's done, just to learn the simultaneous simplicity of the basics of that and the complexity of getting it right. It really makes dialogue actually a lot of fun because again, it's transformative.
Yes. And can I just, last question, what age group are the fellows? Are they all age groups, or is it a certain age group?
Sure, indeed, they're all age groups. I don't think there's any, there's no limit on your age, at least participating in the Fellows Program. Granted, some of the initiatives or specialized activities might have a cutoff age, but the Fellows Program doesn't.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Chris. And it's really interesting what you have said. And I think that we've all learned a lot. I will make sure that the web will have the link to the website of the KAICIID Dialogue Center so that people get to know more about it. And yeah, thank you very much.